13, your local election headquarters, sponsored by Beef O'Brady's.
Good evening and welcome to our election coverage here on 13 Now. I'm News 13's Amy Hoyt. We are live in our newsroom here at WMBB on Harrison Avenue. And for the next hour, we're going to talk about today's election here in Bay County. As you know, it is 7 p.m. and the polls have closed. And the election results, it'll take a few minutes, obviously, for Mark Anderson to tally those and get those to us as soon as he can. And we will bring those to you as soon as we can. A lot at stake today. The biggest vote, of course, where everyone could have cast a ballot was for the $1 million property tax increase that would go to the Bay District School District, and that has been a point of contention between those in favor and those against. Also, Lynnhaven, Parker, and Panama City have some referendums and, of course, candidates on their ballots as well. So we'll be checking in from time to time with our News 13 reporters who are live on location at these different places around town to bring you the very latest. But I do have a guest, someone you will recognize, Arthur Cullen, who is a campaign consultant in Bay County. We know very well. Good to see you, sir.
Hi, Amy. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me this evening.
Arthur and I have known each other a very long time, so
let's not say how long.
We won't say how long. Well, no, I guess it can't be longer for me. I was going to do the age thing, but I'll save that for another day.
Right.
Anyway, let's talk about the one thing that everyone was able to vote on today, which was the tax referendum for Bay District schools. How do you see that playing out?
Sure. This is a countywide referendum that the school board put on the ballot, and this was primarily pushed as a referendum for teacher raises, mental health, security, and pre-K. It probably got hotter than any other race we've seen in recent years on both sides. We've seen a lot of debates, and I think it's going to be a tough pull for the tax to pass this evening, but we'll see here in just a few minutes.
All right. And so can I ask you where you stand on the issue?
Well, having worked in the school system for a long time, I understand that the pots of money and where they come from. I did have a rather difficult time wrapping my arms around the idea that salaries would be on a 4-year tax. I can understand it for a half cent for building and education and or for building and technology, those types of things. But to commit salaries to a 4-year tax, for me personally, is a pretty tough question.
Because what you're saying is this will actually sunset if it passes in 4 years, and then voters are going to have to re-vote on it again. And if it passed now and failed in 4 years, where's that money going to come from?
And that was my major question. And I don't know personally, and I'm speaking just personally here, I don't know that in my mind that was ever clearly answered.
Right. And, when Mr. Husfeldt spoke about this and talked in favor of it, he said that he felt like, or not that he felt like, but that money comes from the state or the federal government to school districts like Bay County, and they're basically earmarked. It goes into special pots, as you mentioned, and they can't be used for different things. Like they have to use, they could give you $20 million for construction. You can't put that to salaries.
Right.
So that was the argument for
which
passing
is very
this.
different for charter schools and different things like that. But yes, there are a lot of pots of money that the school district money goes into. I just don't know that the public at large felt like this was needed with the amounts of money that are in the pots as they are now.
Right, and I think another issue that I've heard from some property owners is they were thinking about voting for it and they weren't sure what to do, and then some folks got their new insurance rates for the next year. So here we are 2.5 years after Hurricane Michael, and insurance policies are going up.
Yes.
So now you've got an additional $800,000-$900,000 on your homeowner's policy, and you're going to pay an extra $100, $200, $300, $400 on your taxes. So I think that weighed heavy on a lot of folks' minds as well.
Amy, as we're talking right now, the first numbers from the Supervisor of Elections office are coming in. Just a reminder that these are absentee ballots and early voting. But as you can see right here, you're looking at pretty much 85% to 15% right now. With,
is the 85% no?
Yes.
because it doesn't say it on the screen. So the top, we probably need to reiterate that. 85% no, 15% yes, and as you mentioned, these are just the early voting and the absentees. So it's going to be a little while for the whole numbers are in.
Absolutely, yes.
All right, let's talk about Lynnhaven. That has been another point of contention because there's been issues there with the FBI corruption scandal and folks having to step out of office with the mayor and commissioner, et cetera, et cetera. So these are three people. We do have an incumbent, Judy Tender, to be fair. So she is definitely on the ballot. But the other two, and most of the people are all newcomers to politics.
Each one of these races had at least 3 people in the race. One seat had 4. And you are right. Judy Tender is the only incumbent running in those races. Yes, ma'am.
All right. And just in the interest of letting people know, you're a manager for one or two?
One or two. I was helping Jesse Nelson and Brian Dick.
All right. And right now, looking at, again, these are the absentees only. Is that correct?
Absentees and early voting.
Okay. And so Ellen Fields, they're all new, not to the area, but to politics.
Right.
She's ahead with 419, Jesse Nelson 394, Joe Brown with 299. And of course, we have a little while before we'll know who the winner is. But any one of these people could take that race.
Yes. Lenhaven is a city that with 3 people in the race, one person would have to get 50 plus 1% to win tonight. If they do not get 50 plus 1%, the top 2 voters the top 2 vote getters will go to a runoff.
All right. Commissioner seat 3 in Lynnhaven, George Hines taking in the majority of the vote right now, 75%, 2,600 votes. Jamie Warwick with 514, Stacy Houchins 171, and Dane Messick 169. I believe 3 of these folks have ties to the military.
Yes. George Hines, Jamie Warwick, and Dane all served in the military, and Stacy's husband is
retired Air Force jet pilot.
Retired pilot. That's a pretty impressive number at 75%. That means he had a very active get out the vote early vote campaign, and unless something drastically happens different here, you could possibly see a 50 plus 1% in that race.
And he's well known in the community. He's been around for a while. We know him.
He is retired military community activist, has been very active.
All right. Is the next seat ready? This is Lynnhaven Commissioner seat 4. Again, Judy Tender is the incumbent in this race, and she is out in front at the moment with 50% of the vote. Brian Gray, 29%, another military person, and Brian Dick, another military veteran as well. So it looks like we're off to a good start here tonight with the numbers coming in, but they're still counting.
Well, and these are just early votes and absentee ballot votes.
Well, good by a news person's outlook, because we like to get them out as early as we can. But as Mark Anderson told me once, I'm going to get it right before I get too quick with it, and we appreciate that so much.
Mark does a great job, and I can tell you, even across the state, he is a leader amongst supervisor of elections, and usually his numbers are the most accurate and in actually pretty quickly.
Yep, Bay County does pretty well, don't we? All right, let's check out the next race. One more. Okay, here's a charter referendum. No at 60%, yes at 40%. And I think that's probably what was kind of predicted, 60-40, 70-30, maybe?
There was quite a discussion in the city that the citizens wanted more input to that. So I think you might see this probably go that way, and then you'll see the city leaders bring it back for discussion and probably have some citizen-led initiatives in the city to discuss changes to the charter.
All right. We have a live reporter right now, News 13's Madeline Bierster, talking about the millage rate and the referendum. And Maddie joins us live now with more. Hi, Maddie.
Hey, Amy.
All right. You're live on air.
Everything is good over here at the... Do what? I can't hear you.
Well, we'll just wait on that. We'll get back to her. I promise that we will. You know, we talked about Mark Anderson and elections, and we had learned today that we're looking at less than a 20% voter turnout. Do you think that plays a role in how something, whether it's a candidate or a referendum, turns out?
Well, it reminds you what we've heard for years, that a small amount of people tend to make the decisions for what's going on. Obviously, we see a higher turnout in in 1 year from now in a governor's race. We'll see more in a presidential election. But these small city races, they're the ones that affect us the most,
right,
but quite candidly sometimes have the lowest turnout. And it is pretty sad.
I thought, I know not every city's in, because a lot of folks were reelected without any competition.
Right.
Right. And so there was only a handful of candidates
Like,
on 3
for
ballots.
instance, in Panama City, Mayor Brednicki did not have opposition. Jenna Halligus did not have opposition. So the incumbent Mike Nichols was the only race in St. Andrews.
Right, and I believe both Lynnhaven and Panama City had the referendum for voting yay or nay to keep the tax incentives to bring businesses here.
Correct.
Correct?
Yes.
And then Lynnhaven had a yes or no vote on changing the city charter. That was the other thing.
Correct.
But even though you may not have candidates in your city, that property tax vote was a pretty big thing. I kind of thought more people would have gotten out for it.
Well, I think it definitely drove more people out. Quite candidly, as you well know, a lot of people don't listen to the news. You would think in their car they would listen to the radios. I mean, we've heard about this all week, many days. But just a lot of people just don't go and vote for these smaller elections. It's sad that 10% of the voting audience could make a difference in what happens around you, but it's pretty normal, actually.
And early voting was a little bit shorter this time. Because of the hurricane and the pandemic, we had the opportunity in the last couple of years. It was like longer, 7 to 10 days, and
last
it was
time
only
we had
5.
super voting precincts,
right?
And this time we didn't have that. And I have to be candid. I think after the hurricane, a lot of us just wanted to go and vote.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just one of those feelings, kind of like after 9/11. You wanted to watch the president throw out the ball.
Right.
After the hurricane, we just wanted to go and vote.
And the super sites worked.
Mark Anderson
they worked
was
in Bay
amazing.
County.
He got those super sites open. I would be an advocate for having super sites every election. And that way you could just, like, for instance, today a lot of people called me because during early voting you could go and vote at different places.
Right.
But today you had to go to your precinct.
Right, and the other issue was some precincts have changed since
Correct.
The hurricane.
Correct.
I had a different place I had to go vote.
Yes.
And I've been using early voting for the last few elections, but we voted today. And so I was like, oh, where's the sample ballot?
Sure.
You know,
and
it was easy to find.
And if you requested an absentee ballot for the presidential election, absentee ballot requests are good for 2 years.
Right.
So a lot of people got absentee ballots and just sent those in.
There was a large number, if I remember correctly, from the website. There was close to 10,000.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's
Yes.
a lot. All right, do we have any more election results that you can pop up for us, Spencer?
On the race in Panama City, Ward 4, I'm seeing that it is a neck-and-neck race right now with absentee balloting and early voting. It looks like 50-49 right now with just, I mean, it looks like maybe 10, 15 votes.
Yeah, there you go. You're right.
Separating those. Mike Nichols is the incumbent. Josh Street is the newcomer to the race. This has been a race that a lot of people have watched, mainly because there's not very many incumbents running, and this is the one that you and I were talking about. There's no other incumbents running in those races.
And these gentlemen, whoever wins, will represent. They represent Ward 4, which is kind of the St. Andrews area, which we've talked about lately. All their, it's growing in leaps and bounds.
Absolutely.
But these elections are at large.
Actually, in the city of Panama City, no.
It's not at large.
In Lenhaven, they are.
They are.
In Panama City, it's just the folks in Ward 4 get to vote. The only thing citywide in Panama City is the mayor's race.
Okay, and
Yes, ma'am.
and the referendum that they
Correct.
have.
Yes,
All right,
yes,
of course.
yes.
All right, how about Parker? We have some numbers coming in from there. Oh, we want to take a pause. Let's look at this first. Tax waiver for new business referendum in Lenhaven. A lot of the voters saying yes, the majority at this point, 62% to 38%, and that allows new businesses to come in. And on the ballot when you went to vote, it said it's for full-time jobs only.
Yes.
They want companies to come in.
You've seen this talked about a lot in our community over the last 10 10 years. Most cases, the business has to meet certain requirements
Right.
before they get the incentives.
Right.
And I am a fan of that. Drawing new business to your community is definitely a competitive process now. But we've seen some cases where incentives were offered and they weren't met. And thankfully now everyone has gotten to the point where you bring the jobs, you show us that the people are here working and that
Right.
money is being put into our community, then
Right.
you get the incentives.
Right. It's not that they never pay taxes as a
Absolutely.
business, right?
Right.
It's just to get them here. All right. Do we have a live shot now?
No.
Talking to Brady and Spencer, who are behind the scenes here, making sure that we look good and that we're on and that we're getting you numbers as quickly as possible.
Let's do Parker.
You have Parker? Yeah, let's talk about the city of Parker. Now, Mayor Rich Musgrave is the incumbent. He's been in, what, 2 terms, 8 years?
Actually, he's been in 4 terms.
4? Are they
and they are 2
2 years? So it's 8
terms,
years,
right,
though.
yes.
Right. Andrew Kelly, another well-known, the fire chief over there.
Correct.
So it looks like he may be beating Mayor Musgrave at the moment. Of course, early numbers, as you know, coming in. But we'll bring those to you when they're final as well.
And for those who are watching by television or Facebook, all of these numbers right now are just early voting and absentee ballots.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say Ron Chappell was the incumbent there in that seat, and Teresa Evans was the newcomer, and it looks like Mr. Chappell is leading there by just about 40 votes.
All right.
Yeah.
And council member seat next up. Let's check it out. Is it seat 3? There you go. April Gibson with 54% of the vote over Ken Thomas's 46% of the vote. That's a tight race, pretty close.
This is a very, very close race. Mr. Thomas serves on the sitting planning board. He ran 4 years, or actually I think he may have ran 2 years ago, either 2 or 4 years ago, lost by a narrow margin then. It looks like this is going to be a close race.
Yeah. And you know, the city of Parker, we think, oh, it's one of the smaller cities on the east side of town. But you know, there are big things in their future with Tyndall Air Force Base being rebuilt and now those new apartments
Yes.
going up over there. I mean, it's going to be, the future's bright for them. So whoever takes over is going to have a lot of work in their hands.
We've just been blessed with the announcement of 3 F-35 units coming. There are other announcements coming from what I hear, and Parker is that bedroom community to the Air Force Base. And Parker, Callaway, Springfield, you're going to see a lot of growth in those communities soon.
And as you well know, my husband grew up in Parker, so we're a little partial.
I call it the Lower East Side. That's where I'm from.
There you go. See?
I'm
See?
from Millville. You're right.
There
Yeah.
you go. All right, now we're going to try and go live again to News 13's Madeline Bierster. We're talking about the millage rate and that referendum that a lot of folks voted on today. Hi, Maddie.
Hi, Amy. Sorry for some technical difficulties earlier, but I think we got everything worked out. So obviously the school board referendum has been the big center of some controversy for some time. And here at News 13, we have been following that since the very beginning for about 6 or 7 weeks. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit and kind of begin where all of this started. So originally around a month ago, Superintendent Bill Husfeld brought before the board the referendum proposal, and school board members all voted for the referendum to pass and be placed on the April ballot. It did cost $215,000 to place on this special election ballot, but they felt the need was very important because if the referendum passes, it will provide several different aspects to the district. So not only teacher raises and staff raises, which I know has been the center of some controversy, but also school safety and security, mental health services, and pre-K programs. So right now the pre-K program is 3 hours long on regular school days, and then will go to 6 hours if the referendum is approved. So obviously there are a lot of people with the district for this tax and other people in Bay County, other voters in Bay County, but there's also been an effort against the tax. And so the Bay County Taxpayers LLC has been formed and spearheaded by a local dermatologist, Dr. John Ward, who you've seen on News 13 several different times. After speaking with Dr. Ward several times, basically the understanding I got was he wanted the district to look internally at what they could cut internally with the budget, rearrange some things, lower the salary of some of the district staff here at the Nelson building, and then look for raises internally. He didn't want the taxpayers to have to come out of their own pockets for that money. So they did have a debate actually last week between Superintendent Husfeld and Dr. John Ward and some of their other team members that support and oppose the tax. So now, it's the final day. April 20th is voting day. I've talked to both members, opposing and for the tax tonight. And as these results continue to come in, we're not exactly sure what the outcome is going to be, but as soon as the outcome does come in, we are going to interview both sides and have that tonight on News 13 at 10, reactions from both sides of the tax. So be sure to tune into that, Amy.
News 13's Madeline Bierster reporting live from the Nelson Building. We appreciate her checking in with us so much. Let's take a look at the numbers in that tax referendum for Bay District schools, and let's see where that stands as the early voting numbers are being counted. Polls closed at 7 o'clock. As you know, it's, 7:20, 7:21, 7:22? So he's still obviously taking, making sure that everything's perfect and the numbers are proper. All right, here we go. Bay District schools millage rate increase, a whopping 72% right now saying no, we don't want it. 28% saying yes.
As you'll see, those numbers are changing. It was at 75-15, and so I think as we see more numbers come in, you'll see that kind of level out. I was talking to someone earlier, and they think that Bay Tax Watch, or not Bay Tax Watch, but Florida Tax Watch has said that there's never been a tax of this kind that lost by more than 70%. So it will be interesting to see how that rolls out. But as you can see, I think it's a pretty overwhelming voice from Bay County saying we don't want this right now.
And this was the last avenue that they had to request for tax, right? Because we already have the half-cent for the school board, so this was the only way they could go to the voters and say, we need more money.
And apparently if they didn't do it now, they would have had to have waited several more years to put it on.
Is it possible to bring it back down the road?
I think so, yeah. I don't know that with these numbers that it should be anytime soon. I think there needs to be a lot of discussion, a lot of education of the voters, and then a lot of the voters looking at their school board members and their superintendent saying, where can we possibly make cuts or changes or different things like that. I don't think anyone argues that teachers should make more money. I know definitely I don't.
Right.
I just think some people might have in some areas a misconception of the pots of money, and then some people would say sometimes the pots of money need to be used a different way.
Oh, interesting. I know, listen, that's a big thing. It's a big budget, and you really got to, like, line by line, would take a long time to get through that. It's hard for everybody to understand. I don't understand all of it.
The school board budget is the largest budget in our county, and it's even larger than the county budget.
And the biggest employer, correct?
Absolutely, and more facilities.
All right. Lynnhaven, as we mentioned, has several items on their ballot, and we want to go live once again to City Hall, where News 13's Jenna Maddox is standing by. And Jenna, what can you tell us what's happening in Lynnhaven right now? All right. Technology is not cooperating with us tonight, and I'm not sure why. You know, so satellites in the sky and things happen, and so we'll get back to her. I promise that we will. We have several reporters, and they are all across the area covering all these different races. What numbers do we have now that we can take up there, Spencer? What's next? Do you have Panama City? All right, let's go to Lynnhaven. Very good. Ellen Fields again, getting closer though, Arthur. Jessie Nelson, 36. Sure. She has 37, and Joe Brown has 26.
I think
percent.
You'll see a lot of these Lynnhaven races go to a runoff. As we said earlier, Lynnhaven has a rule that if you don't get 50 plus 1% in a 3-person race, you have to go to a runoff. And so this was pretty expected in some of these races. Keep in mind, these are early voting numbers. So this is absentee balloting, early voting, right, those types of things. And then we'll see election day results here probably pretty soon. Mark usually tries to get them out. He makes sure that he has everything ready and in the right spots and write everything, and then he will make them public.
Right. At the city of Lenhaven, obviously we've been covering this for over a year now with the FBI corruption investigation and the scandals and people being arrested and now having to face charges. You have to give these people who had nothing to do with that, you have to give them credit. It took a little bit of bravery, I think, to run in that city under the current circumstances.
If you think about it, each race had 3 people put their names forward to run, and it is not easy to run for office.
No.
I mean, you get attacked, people talk about your family, People are on Facebook, you know, those types of things. And it's a pretty difficult thing to put your name out there. And I admire anyone who is willing to do that.
Absolutely. What else do we have in Lynnhaven? We have new numbers coming in? All right, we'll go to Panama City. Arthur, Commissioner, Ward 4.
This is showing right now that with early vote and absentee balloting that Mike Nichols is at 51% with 465 votes, and that Josh Street, the newcomer here, is at 448 votes. Mike Nichols owns a local insurance company, has been in office several terms now. Josh Street actually started a company in his garage that made parts for train. And then he ended up selling that company and now does real estate. And he's also the administrative pastor at North Star Church.
Oh, okay.
Off of 390 there. I think these are both great candidates. This was one of the races that a lot of people in town were watching because St. Andrews is growing.
Right.
A lot of changes expected there in future years along the waterfront and along Beck Avenue. And a lot of the business community really got involved in this race.
Why do you think it's this close when there's an incumbent who's been in, and there hasn't been any controversy or debate around him that I can remember?
Well, I think at some level there are just an anti-incumbency crowd out there that just wants new faces and new blood and those types of things. I do know in this community there's a lot of talk about, you know, things like potholes, infrastructure, you know, rebuilding after Hurricane Michael. Right. There's quite a bit of frustration out there, and you know, it's really hard for elected officials. Sometimes you get in a bubble, and you forget that you got to communicate as much with the public as you do anyone else. We do have some great communicators in this community who communicate a lot on Facebook, and then some who don't. And you know, I think you see this sometime. Show themselves in these votes.
Right. And, you know, when you get back to Lenhaven, when you say there might be a runoff, you know, it's kind of been a little harder to get to know these folks this go around. We had the pandemic, and, you know, people don't want to shake hands, et cetera, or go to a in-person kind of a circumstance
Sure.
where they could meet them. And
I will
so
tell
I
you
think if there was
last
a
time-
runoff, it
Go
might be
ahead.
easier.
Last time when I was here, the pandemic basically brought elections to a screeching halt. And we had to go directly almost to mail 100%. No door knocking,
Right.
no anything like that. So you're absolutely correct.
Because I always like to meet the person. I want
Sure.
to see them in person. Like this job gives me an opportunity to sometimes interview, but as a voter, I kind of like to shake their hand and talk to them as well.
Absolutely.
All right, back to City Hall we go. News 13's Jenna Maddox is standing by with a little bit more information on what's happening in the city of Lynnhaven tonight. Jenna, what's the mood over? All right, technical issues with the microphones. I'm not sure why the audio is giving us grief tonight, but of course it always happens on a very important day. But you know, it's listen, you know what they say, technology is great when it works and when it doesn't, but we can always go back. So just give us a few moments. Do you have any more numbers coming up there? Yeah, back to Commissioner Ward 4. Let's go back to Lynnhaven where Jenna was standing by. Commissioner seat 3. Now this is flipped a little bit.
Sure. As you see, early voting and absentee balloting was in, and then now you see more of the precincts come in. Lynnhaven had 3 precincts today, and I think over the weekend you probably had a lot of people making telephone calls, calling people, asking people to go and vote, knocking on doors, those types of things. So as you see now, you have Mr. Warwick at 43%, Mr. Hines at 23%. Ms. Hutchins at 18% and Mr. Messick at 16%. So it's a pretty close race across the board except for Mr. Warwick now at 43%.
Has that changed in campaigning with telephones, with people not as many people having landlines anymore? They still do it by robocall on
You
the
still
cell
get
phone.
robocalls, you still get text messages. I mean, look, I get calls every day from people wanting you to extend your car warranties, everything like that. All of those numbers are out there. And it is a way for candidates to get in touch with people. There is still a lot of direct mail, but texting and calling and just old school going door to door works.
Right. I just wonder with the issue with scams on our cell phones, a lot of times if I don't recognize the number, I don't answer the phone.
Sure.
So I guess if you text me, it's probably better. We
Absolutely.
got a lot of texting during the national campaign for president back in November.
It's pretty funny when you get a text from the president, right? or the person wanting to be president.
Right.
But yes, it's that technology is out there, and there are companies that make a lot of money doing it.
All right, next up. Okay, Lynnhaven Commissioner seat 4, Judy Tinder, the incumbent, still out in front over her two competitors, Brian Gray and Brian Dick. 50%, 29 and 21.
I believe some of these numbers right now are numbers that came in. I'm showing Mark Anderson's website right now reporting 44% or 44 precincts in. So I think these might be the final numbers.
It does say 100% reporting.
So you'll probably, I don't know how this will break down with Ms. Tinder, but you might see her take that race. If it's 50 plus 1%, I'm not a mathematician, but.
It's a runoff. It's a rounding.
Okay.
She's 40.
It isn't? Okay.
Yep. We
All
will
right.
probably see a runoff there in that race between Ms. Tinder and Ms. Gray, and Mr. Gray.
All right,
Excuse me.
interesting. All right. And right now we're going to go to Anna Hoffman, who is live in Panama City to talk a little bit more about the race there. Hi, Anna. You're at the Bay County Supervisor of Elections office, correct?
Hi, Amy. Yes, I am live here at the Bay County Supervisor of Elections office where the unofficial results have just come in. And for the Panama City Commissioner race, Ward 4, incumbent Mike Nichols has just been defeated by the newcomer Josh Street by just over 100 votes. It was 53% to 46%. Mike Nichols was on the race, on the commission, excuse me, for just over 10 years. So he will now be replaced by Josh Street, who was a born Bay County native, lives in St. Andrews right now, taking care of this. So St. Andrews is in the middle of a lot of revitalization, so he does have a big job coming up for him, but we'll continue to hear from both of them later. So for now, live in Panama City, Anna Hoffman at News 13, Panhandle Strong.
All right, thanks so much. Anna Hoffman reporting live for us. And as she mentioned, Arthur, the incumbent in the Panama City Commissioner race, Mike Nichols, at this moment unofficially has lost his seat.
Yes, and the numbers right now look like it may have been a little over 100 vote difference.
All right, since there was just two people, it doesn't matter. There's no runoff. There's
Correct.
nothing. What would happen if it was exactly 50-50? That's where you go to a runoff?
Probably,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Would that be unusual?
It would be very unusual, but we've had some very close races. Remember the mayor's race here one time was
Right.
decided by 7 votes.
Right, and school board races. I think we have 1 or 2 of those. Was it
The Ron Danzy Pat Sabiston
Yes.
race was divided
4?
by one.
Was it 1?
One vote.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's incredible, isn't it? See, every vote counts. All right, let's go ahead and head out to Parker. We're News 30. Nope.
Nope, we're going to the numbers.
We're going to, okay, let's take a look at the numbers. Most important now anyway. All right, let's talk about Bay District Schools, the millage rate increase. The no still has it with 75%, yes 25%. Now this does not say 100% in, so this is not complete. It is complete? All right, they're fixing that, so that's it. The voters have spoken and they said, no, we don't want to raise our property taxes.
That is a resounding
It's a pretty big number.
there. I don't think we've seen anything like that, at least here in Bay County on referendums on whether it be a half cent or a 1 cent or anything like that. So
Do you think that number would have been, or that spread would have been that big had community members not gotten involved?
I don't think it would have been that large, no. I do think right now, just in our community, that the people are just tired of paying more taxes. Just this, we've got a lot of infrastructure work that needs to be done, and people, like I've had tires flattened this year from potholes, you
Yeah.
know, and I think people want to see more, and then we'll be willing to give more.
Right, but that school money wouldn't have gone for that
No,
anyway.
no. I'm just
Right.
talking overall on
Okay.
on taxes, absolutely. This is one that I think some people are going to have to go to the drawing board and say, what can we do? How should we present this? And, come back to the public at a later date, maybe.
Right, and of course, we'll be following the school board and decisions they make to try and make up this money or look for other ways to fund things that would have come from this tax.
Right.
Up next, the tax waiver for new business referendum in Panama City. no is beating the yes. Is that a surprise?
It is kind of, you have to remember the word tax is there. And so just a lot of people will go and may either not be informed or might just not want to give incentives to companies coming here and extending this. This has been one that's been around for a while. And maybe it just wasn't communicated properly to the public at what this extension would bring to our community.
Will that make it harder to attract businesses? I mean, Panama City's been working hard to come back after the storm. Will this affect that if it doesn't pass?
In some cases, it might. The drawing of new businesses to communities, as we've seen on a national basis, like when people try to get Amazon or places like that, Tesla, other places to move to their states. This type of business has become extremely competitive.
All right, next up. Commissioner Ward 4, Panama City, as we mentioned, Josh Street beating the incumbent Mike Nichols in Panama City, Ward 4. Next, back to Lynnhaven for mayor. Ellen Fields and Jesse Nelson are pretty close there, only 1 percentage point, so you think this will be a runoff?
This will probably go to a runoff. As you see, that's only a difference of maybe 24 votes, so it does make a difference whenever people go knock on doors and different things. So yes, this one will go to a runoff.
And they have to win by, you're saying 50% plus one, not 51%.
Correct.
Which is what people, it sounds like at a glance, but it's
50
not.
plus one.
Plus one vote.
Which would make it an overwhelming win.
Right.
Right.
All right, next up. Also in Lenhaven for Commissioner seat 3, and it looks like this is a final, unofficial final. We have to say unofficial because they have to double check and go through the process.
Mark will not certify
No.
the elections probably until he'll give official preliminary results tomorrow.
Right.
And then he will certify the election probably in 3 or 4 days.
Right, okay. He has more time than that to do
Absolutely.
it, but he usually gets it done quicker. All right, Jamie Warwick. Oh, sorry, go back to that. I didn't get a chance to read their names out loud. Looks like Jamie Warwick winning that seat 3 over George Hines. So it was 43%, 23%, 18, and 16. So a good showing by these other folks. And again, kudos to them for getting out there and loving their city and trying to make a difference.
Absolutely.
All right, next up. Also, Lynnhaven Commissioner seat 4, and we're understanding that there will be a runoff. We have to double check with Mark Anderson, but that's what it looks like for Judy Tinder, the incumbent, and Brian Gray. Next up. The city charter referendum in Lynnhaven, the no's got it. They don't want that city charter to change. My understanding was, and I hope I'm not misquoting this, that it's only about 20 years old.
Correct.
There were some things in there, they wanted the name or the titles to be gender neutral, things like that. But it looks like folks were happy with what they have. They said don't change it.
I watched one of their meetings recently, and I think, overwhelmingly, a lot of the voters just wanted to have some input into it. So I think they will probably get that and bring it back on the next ballot, probably.
All right. Next up, the tax waiver for new business referendum, giving any new business, potential new business who wants to come here, they get a tax incentive to locate and bring full-time jobs. And the folks in Lynnhaven, resounding yes.
Sure. Lynnhaven has been a community where a lot of new businesses have located. They've got an industrial park. They've got different things. And, people understand in some cases that getting new jobs to move to your area is competitive. And so the citizens of Lynnhaven have said that we would like to do that.
Listen, Lynnhaven's growing too, as we know. It has been over the years, in spite of it all, and the hurricane and what's been happening over there. I mean, we got new restaurants. That makes people happy.
It's been rated as one of the #1 home markets in the state of Florida for several years.
Yeah, it's a good location.
It's a waterfront community. You can literally get on your bike and ride to the water in just about any part of the city.
Yeah, I mean, all of Bay County is great, but everybody loves their own city, and so, but that is definitely a popular side of the county.
Right.
All right, next up. Mayor for Parker, it looks like Andrew Kelly has unseated Rich Musgrave.
Yes, Mayor Musgrave has been there for 4 terms, which is eight years. This mayor's office, like the mayor of Panama City, has to run every 2 years.
Right.
And so it looks like the former fire chief has won this one pretty handedly.
All right, for the new mayor, congratulations. Next up, also in Parker, council member seat 1. You said Ron Chappelle is it Chappell or Chappelle?
I think it's Chapel.
Chapel, okay. Well, he made it easy for us, but I apologize for mispronouncing that. But he is the incumbent, and it looks like he has won that seat over Teresa Evans, who challenged him this year. All right, one more. And Parker Councilmember seat 3, April Gibson over Ken Thomas, 59% to 41%. There was a little bit of a kerfuffle between these two people that had come to the media and that we had reported on, or where she had claimed he had said something to her she believed was inappropriate, and then she was, I don't know if I could say the word apologizing for the way it came about.
Correct.
But it looks like the voters still gave her the win.
That's a pretty close race. You know, Parker is a very small town, and you know, it's one of those reminders that you have to be careful sometimes of optics and how discussions are taken.
Right.
Sometimes.
All right, let's go back to Lynnhaven City Hall, where News 13's Jenna Maddox is standing by. We're going to hope that microphone works. Well, we know the mic works. It's other things that sometimes bring us down. Hi, Jenna. What's happening in...
Hey, Amy and Arthur. Sorry about our technical difficulties from earlier, but we're live here in Lenhaven at one of the polling locations. The poll workers actually just left, so that is a good sign that hopefully the counting is coming to an end. But as you know, Lynnhaven has had several races in their election today, one of the most important ones being for mayor. Now, Lynnhaven has been without a mayor for several months now. As we know, former Mayor Margot Anderson was arrested by the FBI back in August. So there has been a mayor pro tem in her place, but the candidates for mayor include Joe Brown, Ellen Fields, and Jesse Nelson. Now, the mayor pro tem has been Dan Russell. He was the commissioner for seat 3, and he has decided not to run again for seat 3. So the candidates for commission for seat 3 include George Hines, Stacey Houchins, Dane Messick, and Jamie Warwick. And for commissioner for seat 4, it includes Brian Dick, Brian Gray, and Judy Tender. Now, Judy has been the incumbent of that position. She's been the commissioner for seat 4 for 4 years now, so she is hoping for a great re-election tonight. So those are our candidates for the races in Lynnhaven. Stay tuned on our website, mypanhandle.com, and check out News 13 at 10 for all of the information, updates, and election results. Back to you, Amy.
All right, thanks so much, Jenna. All right, out in the field, they don't get to see the numbers that we have shown you. So one more time, we want to go through the Lynnhaven numbers and let folks know that there are some unofficial winners. Ellen Fields and Jesse Nelson will most likely have a runoff for mayor of Lynnhaven. Then we have the commissioner seats. Seat 3, it looks like Jamie Warwick has won that outright. And then in Lynnhaven Commissioner seat 4, Judy Tender and Brian Gray. Well, there's no runoff.
Well, actually, we'll have to look at the numbers with Ms. Tender's race because she had to get 50 plus 1%.
Right.
So I don't. I've been told that could be a runoff. And in the previous race, I believe the first place winner only got 43%. So you will have those top 2 voters go to, or those top 2 candidates go to a runoff.
And of course, this brings us back to every vote counts.
Absolutely.
For the folks who got out and cast a ballot today, you made a difference. And it could make a difference between 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 votes. That could mean no runoff.
It
but we'll
looks
have
like
to
the
see.
closest race here might be a decision by about 20 or so votes, and so it does make a difference.
It's interesting how it plays out. All right, what's next, Brady? City charter referendum.
Yeah, wherever you want to go.
Folks said no. Don't change the charter in Lynnhaven.
City charter referendum.
Next.
Okay. Bay District Millage rate.
The tax waiver for new business in Lynnhaven. Folks said yes. Bring them in. Give them a tax incentive. Let's get businesses here.
Amy, you tell us. What do you want to say?
All right. Do we have any more reporters ready to go?
It's going to be a couple of minutes.
Couple of
We're trying
minutes?
to get
Okay,
somebody.
that's fine. Bay District Schools, the millage rate increase. Arthur, the big no.
It is. This is a very large number, and it's one that I don't think was expected overall. You know, you've had several past school board members speak up. You've had present school board members speak up questioning, I don't think questioning their own decision, but questioning, did I have enough information? And I just think it's a statement by the community we don't want to raise those taxes right now.
And as a voter, though, you have to appreciate at least we got to vote on it.
Absolutely.
You know, sometimes, a lot of times, your taxes go up or fees are imposed, and we don't have a say in it because we have voted these people in, and then they see it differently, and all of a sudden you're paying extra money. So this opportunity for the voters, I think, was important, and I think that's what the school board was trying to get out there.
And as you can see, they definitely came out and spoke.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, sure.
They absolutely did. All right, what else you got? We got more numbers? Just in case folks are just joining us here on 13 Now, on our mypanhandle.com and our Facebook page for WMBB. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Tax waiver for new business referendum, that's Panama City, and that was a little bit closer, but they still said no.
Yeah, I mean, this one kind of surprises me. I didn't vote on this one, so I didn't read the exact language, but usually the language is pretty clear about attracting new
Right.
businesses, and that it's only when they provide the numbers of employees that they say that they're going to bring. And so this one does surprise me, but then it kind of doesn't, because, you kind of have, I don't want to say a negative election year right now, but, you had the tax on, you had this, and quite frankly, the word tax right now is not a very popular thing.
Right, maybe they should have put waiver.
Waiver
First.
or business attraction or something, right?
But that's what it is. I mean, legally, that's what they call it, a
I
tax
believe
waiver.
there's some Florida law on some
The
language
verbiage, yeah,
requirements
of course,
also.
Of course. All right, next up, Commissioner Ward 4, in case you just joined us, incumbent Mike Nichols losing his seat to Josh Street, who is a newcomer to politics.
Yeah, it's this has been a race, like I said earlier, that a lot of people were watching. I think it is kind of a surprise to a lot of people, but both candidates got out and worked very, very hard, made a lot of telephone calls and signs. I mean, you couldn't drive through St. Andrews without seeing signs somewhere. And, I just think it might be the incumbency. It might be that people were just ready for a change. It might be that people saw or heard a new voice that they liked and wanted to see what that person could do. You'll remember 4 years ago, this happened with the Cove, and Jenna Halligus ran against an incumbent that was there, and the Cove spoke very loudly, almost in the same way, and put Miss Halligus there. And it's going to be interesting to see the city of Panama City change in the next few years with different personalities,
Right.
different voices, and quite honestly, a lot of different ideas.
Right. You knew a little bit about him. I had never met him.
Sure.
Josh Street, yeah.
I had never met him probably until just a few months ago. In full disclosure, I've known Mike Nichols for a very long time. I will tell you, to a lot of people in restaurants that I would go to and different things, people saw him as a fresh new voice.
Right.
And he did get a lot of support from a lot of the business owners in St. Andrews. He did get a lot of support even from business owners downtown who knew that they needed some fresh ideas in St. Andrews. And so you're seeing a lot of the downtown St. Andrews voices speak up and different things that they want to see, and we kind of see it happening. Like if you drive around right now, just right across the street from here, you see murals on walls,
Right.
and a lot of things that we haven't seen in
A long
recent
time.
years.
All right. We were talking about out in the city of Parker. There is a new mayor, an apparent new mayor, Andrew Kelly, who has apparently unseated the incumbent there, Rich Musgrave. News 13's, that would be Erica Orsett, not Madeline Bierster. But Erica, I know who you are. How's the feeling out there tonight?
Hey, Amy. Yeah, we're out here at the fire department in Parker right now, where, as you mentioned, we do have a new mayor in the city of Parker. It is the now former fire chief here in Parker. He served for 27 years. That's Andrew Kelly. And we actually have him here with us now to do a live interview after his win here in Parker. Andrew, thank you for joining us, and tell us how you're feeling after this win.
Amazed. It was a hot day. It was 12 and a half hours on the side of the road. I'm elated. I can't believe that. I'm so proud of the people of Parker for having the confidence in me to vote for me to be the next mayor of Parker.
Absolutely. And so what's next moving forward?
I think they confirmed the votes are confirmed on Friday, I'm told, and then we're sworn in on the next Tuesday, which would be a week from today, and sit down with our council and see where we're going to be moving to the future.
Absolutely, and former, incumbent mayor at the time, Mayor Rich Musgrave, served for quite a few years in the city. What do you have to say about him and the race that y'all ran against each other?
I think we ran a good race against each other. I know that we always had a good relationship while he was mayor and I was the fire chief. At least I think we did. And I'm happy that I won, and I just wish him the best, basically.
And tell us about some of your priorities now moving forward. We kind of talked about those a little bit last week. What are your top 3 priorities for the city of Parker moving forward?
In campaigning, I wrote a pretty substantial list of what the people of Parker have asked me to do. They want me to beef up the code enforcement. We will definitely do that. They want me to get a more accurate assessment of the income and expenditure so it can be more readily available on the internet for everybody to see. Well, we'll do that. And they want me to tackle this drug problem that we're incurring in the city of Parker, and I promise you we will do that.
All right, thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing all of that. Thank you so much again. That was now new mayor here in the city of Parker, Andrew Kelly. Also here at this election night party is Ron Chappell, who seems to have won by about 5% for seat 1. We also have April Gibson, who seems to have won by about 18% for the seat 3 seat on the Parker City Council. But again, a big story here tonight with Andrew Kelly beating former incumbent mayor Rich Musgrave. He had served for quite a few years here in the city of Parker. So that is a big story, and we'll have a lot more on that tonight at 10. Guys, back to you.
All right, News 13's Erica Orstadt live in Parker. So from Fire Chief Kelly to Mayor Kelly.
That's a big jump. I think sometimes people in a community just want some change. The city of Parker has been through a lot since Hurricane Michael. You can drive around still now and see fresh signs of the hurricane. And I can tell you, being a mayor during these time periods has not been easy. If you had told some of these electeds 10 years ago that they would go through an oil spill, a Category 5 hurricane, a pandemic, some of them might not have stepped up to the plate because it's been very, very difficult for some of them. So I applaud everyone who has served in office, and as you said earlier, it takes a lot of guts to step out and run for office.
And we appreciate their service so
Absolutely.
very much. All right, let's take a quick run through for those of you who may just be joining us to see where the unofficial results are for tonight. Bay District Schools, the millage rate increase. Voters said no to that by an overwhelming number, 75 to 25%. Arthur, I'll let you have this one.
Well, I'm sorry.
We'll alternate.
The tax waiver for new businesses for Panama City did fail there at 52% to 48%.
Next up, Commissioner Ward 4, Panama City, incumbent Mike Nichols losing to his challenger, Josh Street. Next up.
For the mayor of Lenhaven race, right now you see a very close race between Miss Ellen Fields and Mr. Jesse Nelson, and Joe Brown at 27%, Nelson at 36%, and Fields at 37%. This race will go to a runoff.
All right. Also in Lynnhaven, Commissioner seat 3, it looks like Jamie Warwick has taken enough votes to claim that seat. And
to
become
go to a runoff. Yes.
Runoff. You know what it is? You look at the second vote getter, and I'm thinking it's 43-23, but you got to add the other 3 up, and that doesn't make. That's what it is. That's what's throwing me off. All right. Next, Commissioner seat 4, Lynnhaven.
Judy Tender, the incumbent, at 50%. The second place winner there, Brian Gray, at 29%, and then Brian Dick at 21%. I don't know the exact numbers here, but it could be possible that Ms. Tender wins this race at 50+1% of the vote, which is a very difficult task to do in a 3-person race.
Yep, we'll be checking in with Supervisor of Elections, Mark Anderson, and he'll clarify this for us. All right, let's go. Next up. City charter referendum for the city of Lenhaven. The folks over there said, nope, don't change it. 57% to 43%.
On the tax waiver for new business in Lynnhaven, the voters of Lynnhaven at 62% said yes, that they did want to offer the tax waivers, and at 30% no.
All right. Next, for the mayor of Parker, we just heard from Andrew Kelly, the apparent winner there, going from fire chief to the mayor. Rich Musgrave has been in for 8 years, or every 2 years, as Arthur mentioned, and he was unseated by his opponent.
And Parker Council Seat 1, you'll see that the incumbent, Ron Chappell, got 53% of the vote, and Teresa Evans got 47% of the vote. That's a pretty close race there, but it looks like Mr. Chappell will win that one.
Next, Councilmember Seat 3 in Parker, April Gibson, 59% to Ken Thomas's 41%. Is that it? All right. Well, the biggest race, well, they're all big races, but the one that everyone got to vote on was the tax incentive, not incentive, but the tax referendum, the $1 million increase the property owners would have had to pay, failed.
From the school board, yes, and it failed overwhelmingly at almost 75 or at 75% of the vote. That's a large number, and it's definitely something that people in the future will think about.
All right, and we'll be talking more about it, of course, in the days to come. But I think that's going to wrap it up for us for now here on 13 Now. As always, good job.
Amy,
I think you've done this a time or two,
Thank
huh?
you. I get so nervous, and of course I stutter by nature. You've known me for a long time.
You
but
don't stutter.
you know, it's difficult to get on here, but it's fun, and I appreciate you guys and your team that you have behind the scenes here. They do a great job.
Well, we appreciate your insight and your knowledge. Thanks, Arthur.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks so much. And a big thanks to those of you who have been with us for the last hour here on 13 Now, bringing you the latest in election coverage from News 13, your local election headquarters. Of course, we'll continue to scroll the information along the bottom of the TV screen if you go back to your television unit. And, of course, we'll have a complete wrap-up tonight on News 13 at 10. Thank you for watching. Have a pleasant evening.